Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are back on the path to the Charles Martel. We're closing in on the final, guys, and that can mean only one thing. We're on tier 6, Algerie. So let's take a look at our commander. We're running Andre Lemonnier, or Lemonnier. We have Isiroko Yamamoto and Nikolai von Essen. We have Beyond Range, Igniter, Punch Through, Fixated, and Fully Packed as our skills. We are running Aiming System Mods 1, Propulsion Mod 2, and Steering Gears Mod 3. We do have a fully upgraded ship, and we are running the Alpha Tester Flag and the Type 4 Camo. Survivability, we have 35,600 hit points with a 16% chance to, or 16% torpedo damage reduction. Artillery, you have 203mm guns finally. 50 caliber MLE 1931s, you get 8 of those in a 4x2 configuration. 16.8 kilometer firing range with a 12-second reload time. 180 degree turn times, 25.7 seconds. Firing HE, maximum damage is 2,800 with a 17.5% chance to set fires. And firing AP, you get a maximum damage of 5,184. Secondaries, you get 100mm 45 caliber MLE 1931s. You get 12 of those, firing out to 5.2 kilometers, reloading in 4 seconds. They fire HE with a maximum damage of 1,400 with an 8.5% chance to set fires. Torpedoes, 550mm Lance Torpedoes. You have 6 of those, 1 triple launcher either side of the ship. Reload time is 90 seconds. Maximum damage is 15,833 with a 1.3 kilometers torpedo detectability by sea. Then the torpedo range is 10 kilometers with a torp speed of 60 knots. AA defense, you have 20mm 60 caliber CAD MLE 1939s. You get 12 of those, doing 34 damage per second, firing out to 3.1 kilometers. Then you have the 37mm 70 caliber ACAD MLE 1936s. You get 8 of those, doing 48 damage per second, reaching out to 3.5 kilometers. And then you have the 100mm 45 caliber MLE 1931s. You get 12 of those, doing 41 damage per second and reaching out to 5 kilometers. Maneuverability, maximum speed 31 knots with a 660 meter turning circle. Rudder shift is 5.7 seconds with this build. Concealment, 12.4 kilometers by sea, 7.8 by air, 2 is always guaranteed, and 7.5 kilometers smoke firing penalty. Armor, actually starting to get a little better. You finally have some belt armor. But, let's go over it. So the bow, you still have 16mm, meaning pretty much everything goes through it. So keep that in mind. Any sort of battleship caliber guns going straight through and Citadel use, so keep that in mind. However, you do have some side armor belt. The armor belt itself is decent at 110mm, but it is very thin, like it's not very deep. And I can't really tell if the armor belt actually extends above the waterline. I think it does, but I could be wrong. I think it does. The 110mm does reach up in the center there, which does help when you need to angle against things. So keep that in mind. But that being said, here's the biggest issue with this ship, and that is this huge Citadel. Like, this thing literally gets depth struck more than I care to mention. This was one of the biggest reasons that I absolutely cannot stand the higher tier French cruisers. I just can't stand them. Also, what's with the arrow? You know what I'm saying? Do you guys see it too? It looks like an arrow to me. It's missing the point, clearly. It's a great joke. I don't care who you are. But, yeah. Overall, it's very squishy. I mean, you do have some armor, but if you're relying on that armor against anything with big guns, you're probably going to have a bad day. So keep that in mind. Broad launch, maximum wider spread of torpedoes. Fast, above average maximum movement speed. No, that's not true at all. Like, it's just not. It does have the ability to use the engine boost consumable, which is nice. But, if you look, the maximum speed without the engine boost is only 31 knots. That is on the lower side of average. So, this is just wrong. Though, with the engine boost, I guess it might go up above what they consider average. Compromising. Higher caliber AP shell may overpin the armor, but may still arm. Yeah, just assume that they're going to arm. Okay? Like I said, I've been dev struck more in the last 24 hours in these French cruisers than I care to admit to. Algerie. The last heavy cruiser built for the French Navy and one of the best representatives of this type of ship in Europe. Among the cruisers of her time, she was distinguished by powerful armor and very good torpedo protection. She entered service in 1934. There was one of them built. So, let's take a look at her. And again, this one's got a little bit more of a raised bow, which is nice. You get to see that little bit of a banana bow that you see on like faster ships like the Iowas and stuff like that to keep the water from coming over the bow. But yeah, I mean, it's a good looking ship. It's a little weird in stripes, I'll give it that. Like when I've got the stripes on it, probably not the best look for it. But it's not bad. It's a pretty modern looking cruiser. It's very effective, but like I said, it's very, very easily sent back to port. And that is my biggest grief with the higher tiered French cruisers, is that they just get blapped. They just get sent back to port so easily. And with that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we're going to be on Greece in the Algerie. And we're going to be in a Tier 7 lobby, so we're going to be a little bit more careful. But you guys know that I tend to play a lot more aggressive than most people. So these videos may not be the best for most people to learn how to play cruisers and battleships and so on. It's just the way that I prefer to play. I enjoy being aggressive. It doesn't always work out, obviously. And especially in these cruisers, as they tend to get sent back to port in a quick hurry. So we gotta be a little bit more careful. But we're gonna push over to the left side, I believe, right off the bat. We're going to Alpha, and we're gonna get into a lot of trouble. You know, it's kind of what we do. But yeah, we spawned mid. We're gonna go left. The goal over there was to get to a position where we could potentially continue to shoot at enemies while not necessarily being shot at. But I think what ends up happening here is we close the distance a little too much early. And we don't really use the range that this thing has. And that gets us into some trouble, as you'll see later on. But we still end up having a pretty awesome game, and what I consider an awesome game anyway in this thing, which is, you know, a solid game overall. But unfortunately, our destroyer that spawns on our team is not playing right off the bat. That just seems to be a thing with destroyer players. I don't know what it is. It seems like at least 60% of destroyer players don't load in for the first minute of the match. I don't understand it either, but it just seems to be the way it goes. We are pushing up. We initially was thinking about using this island for cover, shooting over the island and getting some fires. But we don't have any spotting. So that's kind of taken away from us. We put up our plane once we're in a position that we could maybe spot some things with the plane. And unfortunately, we're not getting any spots that direction either. The plane is going to come back around to the front of us, and that's when it should start to spot things. But still not lighting anything up until we get line of sight on this King George. Now, obviously, not ideal. You don't want to be spotted first in this game, let alone in a cruiser. But we take a shot at the King George. He actually fires at somebody else, which is actually huge. We get 3,600 damage and HE on him, and we're going to continue to use the HE to try to set him on fire. And we dodge quite a few rounds from the cruiser, as well as, you know, we have the King George's attention now. And we do dodge our torpedo boat, which is always nice. You don't want to run into somebody, get yourself obliterated. He did damage con right off the bat, and we, for once in our life, we get the fire directly after getting somebody to damage con a single fire. But not only that, we're going to get a second fire, I believe, on this salvo, which is absolutely huge. Nope, I lied. Somebody touched him, though, so that's good. But we take a second shot here to see if we can get another fire. We're trying to hit towards the front of the ship, and we actually end up hitting towards the back. He turns out, kind of dodges our shells pretty good. The guy has taken an absolute beating. He's got a permanent fire, maybe 2 permanent fires, depending on what the other cruiser's done. Kind of looked like he had a permanent fire. But now we're going to get to showcase the HE and AP of this ship. Now, we've got a mains out here, over angle, begging for it. This ship, known for being absolutely dev-struck. It's a Tier 7 cruiser, but it's a light cruiser, and it is absolutely touchable. So we are going to switch to the AP. We're going to reach out. We're going to show them that we know this. And we get one shot off, and we get a pretty solid result out of it. 2 full penetrations, 2 overpins. He gets away for now. But don't worry, we'll come back to him when we can. Now, King George has put out his fire, so we're going to see if we can't start up another one before he gets to disengage. No reason leaving people alive, you know what I mean? We do have a shores over here we've got to be careful of. So far, we've done a pretty good job of not being the center of attention. But that's going to change real soon, as we've gotten the attention of the guys in the middle of the map. And with us being detected right now as we're shooting at this King George, trying to set him on fire, because we're detected, we're going to start getting focused. Because, you know, you can only go unnoticed for so long. Eventually, people do start to notice you. And when they do, and you're in a French cruiser, it generally doesn't end very well. Because once people start shooting at you, it only takes one mistake, one big smack, to send you back to port. And we finally get another fire. That should be a permanent fire there. I lied. He damage conned it. So we have to shoot at the shores for now, as the King George went behind the island. We can't shoot at him anymore. And here's where we kind of overextend. The middle has not shot at us yet. The shores isn't shooting at us. He's more worried about the battleships, I say, as he finally takes a shot at us. And you'll see they fall short initially. We've kind of got to be careful here. He is in reverse. We don't want him to load AP on us. And if we're given this much of a broadside, it's pretty much guaranteed that he will switch to AP. Rightfully so. We get a fire on him, and then we come around this side, hoping to spot this King George again. And sure enough, I don't know if it's the friendly cruiser that spots him or if it's us, but somebody spots the King George again. And we're going to take a shot, try to get him on fire again, see if we can't finish this man off. And we get the fire. One shell hits that man and he gets a fire. Been there, done that, buddy. I definitely feel your pain, as that is a permanent fire after he damage conned the last one that we got on him. So I don't know how much time he's got before he gets a damage con back, but hopefully that's enough to finish him off. I think we take another shot here. We're looking at the Kansas. We're looking at the shores. We're looking at the mains. We're in trouble. We do not want to be here. So you'll see I don't fire my guns. Why is that? I don't want to get detected. Everybody is outside my detection range except for the mines. And the mines is actually in the center of the map, blocked by an island. So I don't have to worry about getting detected by him. So now I back up using the island to keep me away from the shores' detection. And then I'm able to fire over the middle. But you can see I'm starting to turn around. We've got this base cap. We've got center cap. So I'm trying to start to worry about the guys in the middle of the map. Now we did get our first kill. I believe that was the King George. We are going to start to rotate the guns to the other side of the ship. And we're going to start to push towards mid. Mainly because we have a Kansas over here that I would love to burn down, and we have a mines over here, as well as a Tallinn. Now, the Tallinn is a nasty freaking cruiser for Tier 6. Not gonna lie, the AP on that thing is disgusting. I'm gonna definitely have a look at that ship at some point. I just haven't done it yet. Because the AP is absolutely disgusting. I've been in many battleships and been absolutely smacked by that freaking thing's AP. Let alone cruisers. Cruisers get obliterated by it. So keep that in mind. Now, speaking of being obliterated by cruisers, we're trying to burn down the Kansas. We have a fire going currently on the Kansas, and we're going to try to set a second one. Somebody sets a second fire. I believe that's going to trigger a damage con, and it's about at this time that we come around the corner enough to find a mines that is kind of begging for it in the center of the map. And you can see, very first shot, he is completely broadside to us, overextended past the island. We fire the HE initially, and then we switch over to the AP because we know we can touch him. And speaking of touching, he just got smacked. But we got shot at by the Kansas, who absolutely blaps us. We take a shot at the mines, and that's going to finish him off. 3 citadels showcasing the AP ability of this ship. Again, these French cruisers are no joke, man. If you get a chance to use the AP, you definitely want to take it, as the Kansas once again blaps us again. We are very lucky to not be just absolutely annihilated completely from the game at this point. But we have a chappie behind us who is going to swing all the way around the entire freaking map, and I have no idea why. Because we could definitely use his help. Now, Tallinn is begging for it, gets blapped by our battleship. And our battleship next to us, I'm trying to get close enough to make sure that he has will to rebuild active if he has it. Okay, I don't want to run away from his will to rebuild if he can use it. Because he's probably hurting after being broadside to that Kansas. But the battleship makes a turn here that is going to make me end up outside of his range in the very near future. And also, you'll notice there's a destroyer out here on the right side. We have a battleship out here on the right side. And so, this game is very easily going to go horribly wrong for our team. We have a North Carolina. He doesn't need will to rebuild yet, so we go ahead and continue doing our thing. We're trying to finish off the Tallinn. We know we can hit him potentially. And this is where we really need the Chappie to come in and help us. We only get one hit on the Tallinn, which is not preferable. Kagero makes himself available, so we have to switch targets to him. We only got 5,000 hit points, and that Kansas could come around the corner at any moment and blap us. So we don't have long. So we are trying to do the best that we can to do as much before we die as we possibly can. Now, Kagero got smacked by our North Carolina, which is actually huge, and that's going to allow us to hopefully finish him, but we are just getting the worst possible, like, shells. Like, they are missing him by inches and just not allowing us to get the hit that we need to finish him off. However, we got one more salvo away, and we smack him one last time, but he doesn't die, and that takes us to 100,000 damage. It doesn't seem like we've done 100,000 damage, but we've done a pretty solid job so far, if not for the one mistake that we made with that Kansas. Not paying attention to the Kansas, getting completely blapped by him while we were focused on the mines. Definitely not a good situation. But Chappie is engaging the Tallinn. Chappie is now turning away all the way to the backside corner of the map, which I don't understand. He could have easily bow tanked that Tallinn and burnt the Tallinn down. And that would have allowed him to close the distance on the Kansas as well. And use that island for cover while he could shoot the Kansas. But he is starting to shoot the Kansas. We're heading over to support our Bismarck. We know that the Kagero's still over here. We still have our Chappie back left corner. The North Carolina died. I believe the North Carolina died to the Kansas. And so it is just a Bismarck, a Chappie, and an Algerie. And the Algerie has only 5,000 hit points. So we are one swift kick away from getting kicked out of this lobby. But Balti gets spotted. This is not a fight that I prefer to be in, because Balti will shred this thing. It's not even a fight. Like, this thing literally can't do anything to a Balti. But we're trying to help our Bismarck. I figure if the Bismarck's going to push around that corner, the Balti might be distracted enough that we can help burn him down. You can see the AG is pretty effective, so if we can continue to stack up some hits, you can see we do have the Kansas there. And of course, our Bismarck is shooting at the Kansas instead of shooting at the Balti, who he was pieing the corner on, and that means that the Balti is going to actually get some shots on us while we turn back to engage the Kansas. The Kansas is not our threat at the moment, but he is an easy target for us to hopefully burn down quickly. So we get a shot, we don't get the fire, unfortunately, and this means that the Balti is able to get around the corner. He's no longer afraid of the Bismarck, and so we're going to drop some torpedoes, and he gets one salvo away and cleans us up. That's the unfortunate side of running into a Tier 7 heavy cruiser, especially the best Tier 7 heavy cruiser, which is the Balti. But Bismarck has somehow lost all of his hit points. I'm assuming it had something to do with being broadside to that Kansas, and also now he's broadside to a Balti, which is something you don't want to be either, because Balti, as he just showed, fully capable of punishing any battleship that gives it a broadside, let alone cruisers. But well done to the Balti on the enemy team. Unfortunately, didn't get as much help out of this Chappie as I would have liked to have had. But you can see he closes in a little bit too late. He has a radar. He could have done more late game to help us out. Really needed that North Carolina to stay alive a little longer as well. There was a lot of times where we could have done better. But again, if I hadn't taken the hit that I took from that Kansas, where we lost 3/4 of our health, and basically one salvo. It was the rear guns and then the front guns of the Kansas, and two separate shots. But he took literally 2/3 of our health, and we're lucky that it took 2/3 of our health and not just completely wiped us out, because Kansas fully capable of sending us back to port in one shot. But yeah, other than that mistake by me, I think this was a very winnable game, and I think it did a pretty good job of showcasing the strengths of this ship on both an AP and HE side of things. Really does show that if you have the opportunity to switch to AP, you can be rewarded handsomely, especially against cruisers. If you get a broadside of a cruiser, you can absolutely mangle them with this French AP. It is no joke. And it's not as floaty as other countries are. So, like, the shells get to the target relatively quickly, which is what it catches a lot of people off guard. They'll flash a broadside at you, think they can get away with it. You're shooting HE, and then all of a sudden you catch them for, you know, half their hit points or more with 3, 4, 5 citadels in a salvo. Like, it's no joke when you get the opportunity. The downside is that the Algerie has 4 turrets that are double turrets, and means you tend to have to get the rear guns involved more often. And when you do that, you're more likely to be smacked. Because obviously you got to open up the angle to get those rear guns. But Chappie here, he just does everything wrong at the end of this. Like, he just threw himself away. I'm assuming he gave up. But he gets death struck by the Kansas, as he should. I mean, he comes out angled. He knew the Kansas was there. He had him radared at one point and still decided to charge right out in front of him. But we're top of the leaderboard, 1,683 base XP in a Tier 6 and a Tier 7 match, so I think it was pretty good. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.